Winter is here. The festive Christmas and New Year's fixtures have come and gone in arguably the most competitive league in the whole of the English football pyramid, the Championship. 24 teams competing for the prestigious prize of the millions of pounds in TV revenue that the Premier League offers. Strap yourselves in and let's see how your team has done so far. So after failing on that all-in promotion push at the last hurdle, a summer of uncertainty with the finances and a potential manager change, Steve Bruce was in fact kept on as manager, much to the dismay of the fan base. As a result, Villa performances were inconsistent with some questionable sales of players and team selections like going from the first to the third choice goalie. With the team languished in mid-table, Villa fans rejoiced as ownership finally ousted Snorlax. In comes Villa fan Dean Smith, and after a difficult October has turned the team back into an outside playoff contender. The defence is still suspect, conceding the most out of all the top half teams currently, but since the change, the goals at the other end are finally going in. Striker Tammy Abraham appears to have found his current level after his disastrous loan spell at Swansea by hitting double digits in the goal tally. That, combined with Grealish's performances and El Ghazi featuring more in Smith's plans, has made the team more potent going forward. The question is whether the early season slump will be the telling factor, and the team needs bodies on defence and unload some of that dead weight, in particular in that midfield. A team to watch in the second half. For the blue side of Birmingham, they're a little bit above where I expected them to be. Gary Monk has steadied the ship at a club that was so perilously close to dropping into League One last season. Despite an initial transfer embargo, the Blues have scored more goals this year than the entirety of last season, and it's mainly down to two men. Veteran Lukas Jukovic continued to show his championship scoring prowess, whilst youngster Che Adams has also contributed valuably and appears to have a bright future. Defensively, the cracks have started to be filled in. Christian Pedersen has been a standout signing and being on average the best left back in the league at this point of the season. This is a definite sign of progression from the disaster opponents of the past few years. Let's hope the owners don't get too cocky and panic sack Monk if there's a minor skid. Home form is what's keeping Blackburn away from a relegation battle, with only 2 losses in 12 at Ewood Park so far. That and Tony Mowbray continuing to revive his managerial career by getting the best out of several key players from the promotion squad. Bradley Dack has taken to the Championship by storm following his major contributions to the team's promotion last season. It's now caught the eye of several Premier League teams. Danny Graham appears to be having a small resurgence as well following his disastrous time at Sunderland, but it's been tough for his striker partner Adam Armstrong, who's only scored twice in the league following a permanent move from Newcastle. The defence and midfield also have veteran leaders with the likes of Charlie Mulgrew and Elliot Bennett complementing young players like Harrison Reed and Darragh Lenihan. If they stay where they are for the rest of the season, it's a successful first season back in the second tier. The one major negative is that you gave Jack Rodwell another chance for him to sit on a whop of cash every week. Hopefully he won't be around for much longer given how much he hurt Sunderland. Early optimism for Bolton fans following 3 wins from the opening 4 games then vanished as quickly as a Pogba Adidas Instagram post. A 1 in 17 record from September up until Boxing Day, and a real lack of goal scoring has sees the team battling in the basement of the league again. Only this time you won't have a 38-year-old Aaron Wilbraham to save you on the final day. You could do with him and Lafondra given the current goal tally, as you can't expect an Asian defence to bail you out every time. Phil Parkinson's doing the best job with the resources he has, but I'll doubt he will receive funds for January to strengthen. I fear for this team, especially as ownership once again can't keep on top of paying the player and staff wages, which is putting the team's future in this league as well as its existence in constant limbo. They seriously need to sort this mess of the club out. After 10 games, Brentford looked to be that surprise breakout team that emerges from the midfield pack that would be in the playoff spots come May time. That is until manager Dean Smith moved on to pastures new, and since then the results, along with top scorer Neil Maupay's performances, have taken a nosedive, which has seen the Bees looking over their shoulders at the bottom 3 rather than the playoffs. Thomas Frank may have had the same philosophies having worked under Smith as his assistant, and he finally got his first win since November, but to me it looks as if he's out of his depth as a number 1. He may need January to bring in some more firepower. The team desperately need to stay in the league with a new stadium coming soon in 2 seasons' time. They should be okay this season given the quality of teams that are below them in the table, but you can never guarantee that in the Championship, especially with the current atrocious away record that the Bees currently hold. This season was always going to be tricky for Bristol City, with star players like Bobby Reid and Joe Bryan moving up a division and leading defender Aidan Flint moving to Middlesbrough. Despite the goals for and conceded being around similar values at the same stage as last season, and a new Finnish goalie that is channeling his inner Pecorine, they're in that annoying spot of mid-table mediocrity. Good enough to not be troubled by relegation, but not good enough to be a playoff team. If they want a playoff push, Lee Johnson should have the funds available in January given the amount of money received for Reid and Bryan. Otherwise, mid-table is the finishing spot for the Robins. I would say Frank Lampard has had a solid start to his first managerial job at Derby County. He's formed his Legion using the loan market to bring in the second coming of Gareth Bale and Harry Wilson, along with Chelsea's Mason Mount and Fiacco Tomori, who have been very impressive in their first real taste of English football at senior level. He also brought in striker Jack Marriott to replace Mate Vidra, and the League One top scorer from last season is proving he was worth the price paid to Peterborough. The style of play is much better than the past few seasons, but my only concern is that the Rams aren't finishing off teams when they're on top, or not being able to grind out results when not playing well against lower opposition, particularly away from home against some relegation-threatened teams. These results here and there have meant it's a fight for the playoff positions rather than the automatic promotion, and given the playoff record for the Rams, I'm a bit worried. Let's hope these young players have the mental toughness to see it out, especially with captain Curtis Davis out for the season. And hopefully Richard Keogh doesn't have another, like you say, wrong place, wrong time moment. Progression appears to have been made from the locale dumpster fire that was occurring on the banks of the River Humber last season. After a poor start and being stuck in the relegation zone, results have improved for Hull City since late October, with only one loss in 12, including a run of 16 points out of 18 in December, to take them away from trouble. I don't think the Tigers are safe yet, but things are moving in the right direction under Nigel Adkins, who has found a new lease of life after his struggles at Reading and Sheffield United. Gerard Bowen is continuing his strong development from last year, whilst Marcus Henriksen is having the best season so far in a Hull shirt. The bad news is that Bowen's performances and Baggs' potential will attract interest from teams from high up the league, so it could be a nerve-wracking January for the fans. In addition, on loan defender Tommy Elphick is probably going to be recalled by Villa, so the Tigers will need reinforcements. If no one comes in, they could slide back into the relegation fight. At least for the moment, you are on the up, unlike this travesty of a team. Marcus Evans, I must congratulate you. You finally made Ipswich Town relevant again, by being the worst team in the league by a country mile. Turns out Mick McCarthy wasn't the only issue with this team. At least he kept you away from any relegation worries. Sure, ownership needs to make the change due to fan apathy to show you cared about their opinions and the poor on-field play. What people forget is that he jumped ship before his contract is up, and that this has backfired spectacularly. The Paul Hurst experiment gamble of bringing in half of his surprise Shrewsbury team from League One didn't last long, and now you're expecting a managerial merry-go-round member Paul Lambert to turn this tractor around? He hasn't been relevant since his double promotion with the yellow animals you do not speak of. He let Millwall of all teams win away at Portman Road. This is the Roy Keane tenure on steroids. You have gone from the forgotten locale to the premier locale of this league, whilst your rivals in yellow are battling at the other end of the table. I must have Trees Jinxon syndrome, considering I had you guys as an outside playoff contender this year. Sorry, guys. I can't believe I have to admit this. The Whites of Yorkshire aren't punching their fans where it hurts. Instead, they're doing it to 23 other fan bases in the division with all these last-minute goals. Part of me is still hopeful for a downfall and that Marcel Bielsa will have his typical meltdown and fall out with ownership, but so far this hasn't happened. As much as I dislike Leeds as a team, they do have a stud forward in Kamar Roof, whilst Pablo Hernandez has really stepped up and shown the quality that Swansea saw in him several seasons ago. Defense has been rock solid as well with the centre-back partnership of Liam Cooper and Pontus Janssen, along with a steel summer signing in left-back Barry Douglas, who not only is great going forward but has helped the team with the joint second fewest goals against in the league. My big question for the club is this: how will the players react to a poor run of results? And can Bielsa keep his cool in this situation? As Bielsa has coached out the choking habits of previous seasons, we'll unfortunately have another insufferable fan base in the Premier League next year. For the remaining teams facing them, don't let them score first. They have won every game with which they've taken the lead. Good luck. It's a classic Tony Pulis team. Despite losing Ben Gibson to Burnley, Middlesbrough have been solid defensively with the fewest goals against in the league. But that coincides with not much to shout about offensively. When none of your strikers are averaging more than a 6.7 player rating, and only relegation-threatened teams having a worse goals for stat, there is a problem. The defense has got the team in the playoff mix, but it appears the teams are starting to find a way to be effective against the Pulis system. That's in a lack of depth when the injuries have hit, of course, Borough to lack consistency and fall off the pace of the leading teams. Unless things drastically change from a scoring point of view, it will be another playoff battle, and like the Rams, the Teessiders do not have a great playoff record, and I would say Pulis may be axed if they don't achieve promotion this time around. As much as Millwall is a very unlikable club, I was impressed by their performances last season to be just 3 points off the Championship playoffs, having just been promoted from League One. The second season syndrome appears to have hit them though with two massive skids in the first half of the season, and that's resulted in the Lions looking over their shoulders rather than their head. The big stat that is hurting them, conceding the most goals in the last 15 minutes of games, and up until their game at Ipswich, they had the worst away record in the league. The only players stepping up are CDM Sean Williams and the boot of Lee Gregory, whose goals are just about keeping them afloat above the drop zone. We also have Jake Cooper, who looks like a great defender at his young age, and is showing up the rest of the strike force by being the second top scorer for the team. But he can't be just him along the back four that's trying to put out all the fires. This season is the true test for the club, and Neil Harris's managerial credentials. Sink or swim. I was right that an East Anglian team was going to be the surprise of the league this season. Unfortunately, I chose poorly. The correct answer was the team in yellow and green. After what looked like another average season for the Canaries and losing creative midfielder James Maddison, who's gone on to better things at Leicester, the copied Huddersfield German model that Norwich implemented last season appears to be working for them too, with a run of 45 points in 21 games propelling them right into the title fight. This group of ex-German league players are complemented with a nice blend of youth and veterans, and that's turned the team into one-goal win specialists that 2005 Mourinho would have been proud of. Timo Pukki, a free transfer from Brøndby, is turning into a fantastic Finn as the top scorer, while young Argentine Emiliano Buendia is terrorising defences like punchman Lionel Messi. Like Leeds, they also have a knack for late goals to either win or not lose games, whilst head coach Daniel Farke, whose job looked a bit under threat after the draw with Ipswich in Game 6, is now playing the Leicester Ranieri card during post-match interviews after all these wins. The only thing that's missing from them is the pizza and dilly ding dilly dong. Also, congratulations, you finally got Matt Jarvis off the team. Forest had shown some progression from the seasons of mediocrity and were challenging for the playoff spots up until Christmas time. The away form has been solid with just 2 defeats on their travels, and that's nothing to be sniffed at, although I should expect that from the Aitor Karanka managed side, since he learnt from the parking the bus expert. However, he's under pressure given the owner he has over his head, and the amount of money that's been spent, combined with the Christmas period results not going too well, and that's seen the team fall off the pace of the playoffs. The only things they are on top of this season at the moment are the number of cards and draws. Some positives have been the form of Joe Lolly and the toxic mercenary Lewis Graben, who was the top scorer up until the Christmas period, but so far, the Wolves' route of signing Portuguese players hasn't gone fully to plan. Record signing João Carvalho isn't justifying his very hefty price tag, so that's a big financial blow if he's a bust. I wouldn't count them out just yet of being in the playoff battle, but to me there's more chance of them falling further behind and back into mediocrity if Branca's let go. This owner needs to realise soon that the Championship isn't a cakewalk like the First Division is in Greece. Preston, I'm not sure what you are as a team. After just missing out on the playoffs by 2 points, you begin this year with a 1-win intense start that includes 7 defeats and being trapped in an early surprise relegation scrap. The team then flips the script to only lose one of the next 12 to move into the midfield pack, before then hitting another rough patch during the Christmas and New Year fixtures. I know that you have one of the smallest budgets in the league, but just tell us what you're trying to be. What's really hurt PNE this season? Being able to come back into games when falling behind, with the team ending up with just 4 points from 15 losing positions. Alex Neil will be banking on striker Callum Robinson and midfielder Alan Brown to continue their strong development. There is, however, one problem with the form of Robinson. History shows that young Preston strikers that have good goal-scoring pedigree result in them being bought by a bigger club in 2 to 3 transfer windows, so make use of him while you can. PNE isn't safe yet from being thrusted back into a relegation battle. Wait, so you guys don't suck? I swear I had you guys as one of the favourites to be relegated with everything that you were doing. That horrendous start that included a 7-1 defeat versus West Brom. You hired the Wally with a brolly as a manager and had a very inexperienced squad to begin the season. I only have one explanation for this. Necromancy. As since the torrid start of 4 defeats from 4, the team has only lost 5 times from the next 21 games. The Hoops now have the 5th best home record in the league, have gone from rock bottom of the table to lurking just outside the playoffs. Perhaps the veteran lone strikers in Naki Wells and Tom Alhemmed may have something to do with the change in form, bringing that experience and goals contributing to what's been provided by Luke Freeman in midfield. That's an unlikely centre-back partnership forming between Joel Lynch and German Tony Leisner. However, Hoops fans, I wouldn't get too cocky about making the playoffs. Steve McLaren tends to bottle it in the second half of the seasons. Finishing in the top half would be a great season given the start the team had, but would also mean McLaren will be around for another season, and may start to become frustrating for fans when results start to go wrong. This is the only warning I'll give to you guys about him and his tactics. Learn from it. So, Reading, how long did it take you to realise Paul Clement was a bad manager selection? Yes, he kept you up last season, but his style of play is absolute rubbish and he can't score consistently with it. It also doesn't help that he didn't have a competent starting goalie until mid-October. First, there's the dumpster fire, Vita Manone. Then a League 2 goalkeeper in Sam Walker. Before finally settling on Finn Ansi Jakola, who like his compatriot in Bristol has played well and reduced the goals conceded. However, he can't put the ball in the net at the other end. Royals management finally axed Clement after 4 wins in 20 and have now gone to the probably saturated well of Portuguese managers and come up with a guy that has had 12 managerial jobs in 15 years, 6 in the last 5, assuming that will solve all the problems. I doubt it will solve the Blackadder goes forth stat of 0 wins and 17 times the team has fallen behind, or get guys like Yaku Mete or Bodvarsson backing monster goals. This is a true low-cal appointment of a manager, and unless drastic things happen in January and Jose Gomez isn't like Walter Zenga at Wolves, this team has relegation written all over it. It was always going to be tough for the Millers to stay in the division following the playoff promotion, but after a promising start of 4 wins in the opening 7, the fans had some hope for surprising everyone. The team then spirals down the table faster than the Christmas songs on the singles chart once the new year comes round, with just 2 wins in the next 19. Like Millwall and Brentford, the away record is atrocious with just 8 goals scored on their travels, whilst leaking them at the other end. The best player at this stage of the season is Will Vaulks, a defensive midfielder who is tied as their top scorer and at the top of the assists, which is exposing the lack of quality at the top end of the pitch. I'm sure Paul Warne is doing the best job he can given the budget restrictions, but all the incoming players have either struggled at this level or caught the injury bug. If he does pull off a survival season though, his stock in the managerial role will be increased. Better get those current strikers firing soon or bring in an experienced one on loan in January. The Blades are proving that last season wasn't a fluke. Chris Wilder is continuing his non-linked legend fairy tale by producing a fantastic style of play with the interesting addition to a 3 at the back system, with the left and right side centre backs pushing very far forward while on the attack. The result of this has seen central defenders Chris Basham and Jack O'Connell being additional threats. Elsewhere on the pitch, Oliver Norwood continues to be a championship god in central midfield and is looking for his 3rd consecutive promotion from this league. Forwards Billy Sharp, David McGoldrick and Leon Clark are all turning the clock back with a combined 26 goals between the 3 old men, whilst young goalie Dean Henderson is another potential future prospect for the England team. It's been 10 years since the Blades had the chance of reaching the Premier League, but I have questions about the team's pedigree if a surprise promotion does occur. I doubt the strikers will all turn into Glenn Murray and still be prolific in a division that none of them have played in. Father Time does not stop for anyone, and so a retool will be needed up front soon. Also, I question this Gary Madine signing. Yes, it's a loan, but you know he's a former Owl and had a public fallout with Captain Sharp. Speaking of the Steel City, the blue side is a bit of a train wreck. Another transfer embargo prevented the Owls from making any major transfer moves, and apparently the now former head coach Yosu Lukade didn't do pre-match team talks, so I'm not sure how they're motivated to do anything on the pitch. When you can see the most goals from open play in the league, something is wrong. That's in former fan favourite Fernando Forestieri being an idiot in pre-season. Despite Adam Breach scoring many wonder goals, Wednesday have been teetering on the precipice for a relegation battle, and as a result, ownership once again wasn't very Christmassy by relieving Lukade of his duties. They've picked up 7 points from the 3 games since the sacking. Okay, good. A new manager just in time for January. Let's see who they're looking at as a permanent replacement. Snorlax? Instead of, say, Jokanovic, who's got 2 promotions to the Premier League, playing attractive football? Yes, Bruce will keep you away from a threat of relegation, but did you see what he did with Villa? Good lord. Hope Wednesday fans enjoys a season of 2 of good results but dire football, along with some more mercenaries to join the likes of Stephen Fletcher. Hey, Stoke fans, what was that about you being clear favourites of the league? I couldn't hear it over your entire season collapsing. We spent all this money, we kept most of the fence that sucked last season and is getting older. We've got players like Tom Ince who will delight you for 1 game and then disappear for the next 3 to 4. You then realise you've fallen into the same trap that 90% of the teams that are favoured by the bookies to win promotion. Mid-table mediocrity. I'm surprised Gary Rowett lasted until this week before he was relieved of his duties. Most teams in this situation usually sack the manager if they're not in that promotion battle by, say, October. We'll have to see how the new boss, Nathan Jones, adapts to a bigger team with higher expectations. I know you guys have money with parachute payments, but that doesn't last forever given the big wages some of your players are on. You still have the cancer inside of Berahino, who has finally scored a goal after over 2 seasons. Well done! Also, I see Afellay has been welcomed back with open arms, only to get injured again. I smell a potential future lolcow if the Jones appointment doesn't work out. Like Stoke, Swansea haven't really got into the playoff contention since their relegation from the Premier League, and are also in that mediocrity line. It doesn't matter if you have the best passing accuracy when the players can't put the ball in the net. Graham Potter has looked to the younger players as part of team selections, as the veterans that stayed on the team following the relegation aren't showing their true talent. Luciano Narsi is a very expensive reserve player with being left out the likes of Joel Osoro and Daniel James, whilst Wilfred Bony has only just come back from another injury that plagued him since the return to the Swans. The bright sparks have been young Welsh defenders Joe Groden and Colin Roberts, while striker Ollie McBurney has looked like a good player for this level on occasion, but has struggled to find the net consistently. As a result, the playoffs are becoming more and more distant for the Swans, so my suggestion is to get rid of all the big earners that aren't performing this transfer window and start building for a second season promotion challenge. Darren Moore is showing exactly why the Baggies should have hired him in the first place when they decided to move on from Pulis last season. Oh, what could have been had you not had Pardew for half a season. You might have just survived. Anyways, what is contributing to West Brom's strong season? Goal scoring, in which they are top in this stat. In particular, the form of Dwight Gale, who continues to show his quality in the second division, whilst Jay Rodriguez is returning to his pre-Southampton injury proficiency. In addition, Harvey Barnes is now showing his talent with more minutes under his belt, and Matt Phillips is having a bounce-back year. The one concern that's holding them back? The defence. Despite some good average ratings for the centre-backs Ahmed Hegazi and Craig Dawson, the Baggies have conceded the joint most goals out of all teams in the top 8, have been very suspect when they've been counter-attacked. If they're ironing this out, they're a definite lock for a top 2 spot. If that does come true, please remember to loan or sell Gale back to a second tier team. He becomes a liability in the Premier League as shown during his time at Palace and Newcastle. Like Rotherham, Wigan had a solid start to get early points on the board to stay away from the relegation trapdoor. 6 wins and a draw in the opening 9 games sounds like a great start. Unfortunately for the Latics faithful, a poor run since October for the team has seen them drop back into the survival battle they were hoping to avoid this season in order to remove their current yo-yo status of between the Championship and League One. When a 19-year-old right-back is the best performing player, some questions need to be asked of what Paul Cook is doing tactically, especially that forward core. Will Grigg is once again no longer on fire in the Championship, which makes me think he's just a League One Dwight Gale. The same could be said of their other striker in Joe Garner. Nick Powell has done okay but needs to do more in my opinion. Perhaps it's because his fellow attacking midfielders Michael Jacobs and Gavin Massey are long-term injury problems. Another huge problem is their ability to come back from losing positions, as they are last in the stat with just 1 point gained out of 15 losing positions they've been in. They need to dig deep and improve this, otherwise it's another trip down to the 3rd tier. I'm probably going to be horrifically wrong with these predictions that I have for the end of the season, but let's see how close I get come May time. In no particular order, I have Norwich and West Brom taking the top 2 spots in automatic promotion to the Premier League, with Leeds dropping into the playoffs to join Derby, Middlesbrough and Sheffield United, once again in no particular order. For the relegation zone, Ipswich and Reading are down for me already, and it's a battle between 4 or 5 teams as to who is trying to avoid that final spot. For me, I'm going to say it's going to be Bolton that will be relegated due to their lack of goal scoring and no Aaron Wilbraham to save them this time. You could also easily argue Wigan or Rotherham, but it's going to be very close between those 3 teams. Let's see how this goes.